Have you ever wanted to go to a school, but you don't want one of those schools that makes everyone a super far left, artistic student that's not going to get a useful degree? Well, then do I have the place for you. It's called Prager University, and I don't know what the fuck PragerU is supposed to be. It's absolutely awful. It's just spreading false information. It is the embodiment of what makes everyone typically look at and despise conservatism other than, other conservatives. Let's be honest. Whenever people are too lazy to look up stuff themselves and only listen to what people say without doing any extra research, it really sucks to try and argue with those people or try and convince them, hey, what you're talking about is just wrong. And PragerU, it is just that. It's all of that. There's so many fallacies. Everything they say typically contradicts itself. It's not a good YouTube channel. They're not a good university. PragerU really shouldn't even exist, especially right now whenever there's so much political turmoil that, we don't need more stuff dividing people. But that's not even the worst part of PragerU. The worst part is the amount of hatred that they spread towards literally everyone that doesn't agree with them and everyone that goes against their own beliefs. This can range from targeting leftists, trans people, gay people. They don't care. They're just trying to shove everything they can down your throat. The only reason that I know PragerU still exists is because they keep spreading their propaganda everywhere, including buying ads on YouTube to promote Christianity. And if we're being completely honest, you can't really look at Christianity and make fun of other religions or even just atheism in general, because putting all of your belief into something with no proof is just as irrational as someone not believing anything because there is no proof. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through some of their videos and point out a lot of their issues. And I do want to quickly state that I'm not against anything that I'm talking about. If you're conservative, that's perfectly fine. All I say is do your research. If you're a Christian, don't hate on people. Like, if you want to try and convince them that, maybe they should come to your side or whatever it is, that's fine. But don't just try and make fun of them because they don't agree with you, especially if you're not going to back it up with anything logical or anything factual. The first video I want to look at from them is called What's Wrong with Atheism, because it's the one that they kept advertising, which honestly, really, we shouldn't have political ads on YouTube. Like, maybe, whenever it gets time to voting, we can have voting ads on YouTube, but everyone should be making their own informed decisions. You shouldn't be able to just straight up make a video and lie about people online and publish that. Like, why can we still do that? That's what I'm doing now, but it's not politically or anything motivated. It's just that they keep lying, and so I want to talk about it. In this video, the entire thing they try to do is try and say that atheism isn't able to exist because science and God prove otherwise, even though God can't really prove otherwise if you have no physical proof that he exists. They keep saying that science proves that God has to exist because they don't understand reality and how it works.
To affirm a transcendent creator beyond space and time as the best explanation for the origin of our finite universe.
They go off of a quote where some guy claimed that an external creator is the most logical solution for why we exist and why space and time is a thing. How is that logical? That makes just as much sense as everything just popping into existence and evolving to where we are now. How can you argue that something cannot come from nothing whenever you're talking about a God that's just existed for all of eternity? Like you just said, something can't come from nothing. That God had to have a beginning. He was not just always there. That's not how it works. If you want to try and look at it that way, there is no way for it to make sense any more than, anything that you disagree with when it comes to atheism.
Where fundamental laws and physical parameters have somehow been fine-tuned with just the right strengths and values to make life possible. The incredible odds against this happening by chance has led even agnostic and atheistic physicists to marvel.
The next claim that they try and make is that where we live and how we're alive on this planet right now with gravity and everything that keeps us alive is so incredibly fine-tuned that it has to be an external force. And that's just incorrect. Just because we are where we are doesn't mean a God has to exist. We live in an ever-expanding space where everything is constantly being formed and there are more planets and galaxies being formed constantly. And that means that, theoretically, anything is possible. Yeah, it is lucky that we exist, but in theory, if that kept expanding, eventually we're going to exist no matter what. Even if we didn't exist now, we would at some point. there's a good chance too that there are other beings like us out there. Just because we haven't met them yet doesn't mean they don't exist. That's, it's the same thing as religion pretty much. Just because we don't know that they're out there doesn't mean it's not real. It's still just theory. Everything in reality is pretty much a theory. Religion, politics, it's all a theory. A game theory.
The complexity of life. Molecular biology has revealed the presence in living cells, tiny, intricately constructed molecular machines, a complex information storage, transmission, and processing system that resembles but vastly exceeds our most advanced digital high technology.
The next thing they try and go off of is because, stuff is really intricate when it comes to our biology, which is, DNA and type of stuff, that just because it's super intricate means that it has to have been made by a god. It isn't the fact that through evolution, we went from literally one single-celled organism to what we are today through evolution. All that matters is that they don't really understand it, so it has to be God. It's something that scientists have done research on for a long time and know quite a bit about. I don't know why they're trying to go off this argument, because all that makes me think is that they don't want to research how molecular biology has been studied, because while yes, it is very intricate and it's really interesting how all of that came about, it's not like it has to be a god. Just because they don't understand it doesn't mean that it has to be an external force or anything like that. That's it for the first section. Now we're going to move on to another video, which is totally not going to cause any issues. Why do girls become boys?
But if you graduated high school over a decade ago, it was unlikely that you knew anyone who was transgender because, according to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the condition underlying it afflicted roughly 1 in 10,000 people.
I want to quickly add in here that this is specifically just talking about what was written down in books. This has nothing to do with the fact that a lot of kids probably hid, how they felt from their parents, because none of their people that they knew were like that. None of their friends acted that way. And so they just hid it and didn't know until they were older that they could be, having or experiencing symptoms of gender dysphoria. They try to make a point that, the thing that makes people want to switch is becoming more and more common, the mental illness that's causing this. And that's just incorrect. There are probably a lot more people that didn't identify with the gender that they are from back then, but it wasn't really accepted 20, 30 years ago. And that's because of people like this that believe it's an issue, and everyone was shamed and bullied if they even thought of being the other gender, and even today, they still are. It's just that today, it's become more acceptable to actually be able to make that switch and to identify as another gender, so people aren't freaking out about it as much whenever another one of your friends happens to become transgender or admit that, they don't feel like they're in the proper body. It's always been really scary to come out for a lot of people, because there are so many hateful people in this world that think that, oh, you're a transgender, we should probably, do something to you because that's not right. There's a list on Wikipedia you can go to that shows just how many people have been ended. I don't want to get, in trouble. There are so many people that have been ended, and that list gets longer and longer every year. And when I say that, I mean the list for each year becomes longer every year. Like 2010 is half the size of 2020. That is an issue that needs addressed, not with the transgender people, but with the people that are...
Before 2012, there was no scientific or medical literature discussing adolescent girls who wanted to transition to the opposite sex.
Before 2012, there was nothing talking about why little girls wanted to transition. I think that's because no one talked about it, because it was such a scary topic for people to talk about, because they would be killed. Not always was it killed. You could be bullied, you could be harassed, your parents could disown you and not love you anymore, and then you'd be on your own at the age of 10. But no, it didn't exist. Nothing proves that it was an issue back then. It's all because we're in 2022 and everyone is woke now. That's the issue. Then they try and go on to argue that social media and influencers are the reason that, adolescent people, and specifically adolescent girls, are wanting to transition.
YouTube, Reddit, Tumblr, TikTok, and Instagram all host popular social media influencers.
I've never seen anyone say that at all. The only thing I could see is that maybe with, you know, people like Nikita Dragon and other big transgender influencers, like maybe them existing is the reason that some of these people identify more commonly as the other gender. That doesn't make sense either, because that's just someone existing in their own body, doing what they feel is right. If that is influencing other people to do the same, they're probably transgender. Especially because I can't find anything from, again, big transgender people or really any transgender influencer in general trying to transition people to being transgender.
Today's version of Hollywood stars who insist that if you feel uncomfortable in your body, you're probably trans.
How many influencers have said that? None. No influencers have ever made the claim that if you're uncomfortable in your body, you're trans. Reddit is not a social media platform for big influencers. It's a toxic wasteland that I'm on every day, but that should not be included here. Reddit should not be influencing you in any way, and if it does, then you need to get off Reddit. Tumblr. It doesn't really exist now because it was a porn site. No influencers go on Tumblr anymore. Then we have YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. All of these host a lot of, you know, transgender influencers. None of those people are going around spreading this message. The worst thing I think these influencers might say is that if you are uncomfortable in your body, then there's a chance you might be trans. I have never once seen them try and make the claim that if you're uncomfortable in the slightest, you're trans. It's not a thing that you just make up. It's not a thing that you just start doing. Now, there are probably some people out there that fake being trans because they think it might get them more views. Those people are typically found out pretty quickly.
Rates of anxiety, depression, and instances of self-harm are all at record levels for this generation.
They then go on to talk about how anxiety and depression and self-harm are at an all-time high for this generation, and I don't know why they don't know this or why they can't do any research, but this all stems from them. People that are older than us, people like PragerU, that keep spreading information like this, causing political turmoil, causing people to constantly be stressed out and anxious about what's going to happen next in our generation, if there's going to be another war that we're going to be drafted into. We have people getting out of college and, you know, even in the past few years, and they're going into an economy and a housing market where you can't afford anything unless you are going to be in debt for the rest of your life. You don't know if your landlord's just going to spike your rent by like 3 times what it was last month. And, you know, not every place in America or in the world even has rent caps to where, you know, they can't keep increasing it. But they act like it's, you know, like why even bring this up right now in this video? That makes literally no sense whenever the actual issue is not even closely related to transgender people.
A quick fix becomes very tempting. So it doesn't take much, a YouTube video, a friend's suggestion, to get a troubled girl to buy into the fantasy that gender transition is the answer.
They try and say that gender transition is a quick fix. That's just not. A surgery is not a fucking quick fix. 2 to 3 years. Quick fix, guys. Possibly 5. That's a quick fix. PragerU couldn't just Google how long a gender transition takes. A gender transition is not a quick fix, and it's also not a cheap fix. If people are depressed with who they are, there's, you know, a chance that a gender transition could possibly change that. It could be a hormonal issue going on, and they need the other hormones that their body aren't producing right now. I just butchered that, but you guys get what I'm saying. That being said, that doesn't instantly mean that you should go out and get a gender transition, and most people don't do that. I don't think I know anyone that's ever thought of doing that.
Psychologists, educators, and the medical establishment to rush these teens towards a solution that will almost certainly harm rather than heal.
They then try and talk about how psychiatrists, medical experts, which I'm pretty sure are the same thing, and educators are rushing kids into transitioning. Let me say something here. No. Your teacher isn't just going to stop in the middle of class, look at you and be like, you're transgender. You should go and get in transition right now. But yeah, I think that's where I'm going to end this video. If you guys disagree with what I said, I really don't care. You can totally do that. But don't go around making fun of and hating other people just because they don't agree with you, because that's just rude. But yeah, that's it. If you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button and sub to my channel. But yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.